Hi, it is Jerry Roberts back with another edition of Newsmakers Journal of the Vaccine Year. It is Thursday, January 21st, and we are continuing our occasional series of interviews with candidates in the Santa Barbara city election. And we're delighted to welcome back Meagan Harmon, Council Member Harmon, who represents District 6. Thank you so much for coming back to talk with us.
Thanks, Jerry. Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Are you happy today because we have a new president?
I'm feeling resolute. I'm feeling resolute today. Yesterday, I mean, look, I find inaugurations, especially when there's a transfer of power involved, to be just sort of like very emotionally potent in general. I love them. They're kind of the most tangible displays of our democratic values that happen in American political life. So I love them. And then yesterday in particular, we've had 2 weeks ago, the insurrection and 4 years, more than 4 years really of turmoil. So to me, it was a hopeful day. It was a hopeful day. And, despite whatever criticisms you may have of his speech making, I thought President Biden did a remarkable job of reminding us of our empathy.
I thought it was a very good speech. I just worry that people are going into this with too much hope, as I always do, because there's a whole authoritarian party that is still out there and that is going to represent a big problem going forward. That said, okay, so you are running in District 6. Remind us where District 6 is, what neighborhoods that entails.
The neighborhood that I represent in District 6 is the downtown neighborhoods. So it's really a lot of State Street frontage and West downtown goes all the way to Alomar, which is up by Cottage Hospital. But it's the heart of our downtown, as I like to say. All
right, and you have obtained this seat by being the luckiest person in the world, I think, aside for Oscar. So you were appointed on an interim basis by the city council back in January of 2019, as I recall. And then in August, you had drawn no opposition. And so your colleagues decided you didn't really need to appear on the ballot. Now you'll be on the ballot in November, running really for the first time for a 5-year term as we transition to even year elections, but have so far drawn no opposition again. So it is possible that we'll be stuck with you until 2027 without you ever having gotten a single vote. How does that make you feel?
Well, there's plenty of time for folks to throw their hat in the ring. I don't think that the filing closes until August. So certainly, I think it's a little premature to say there's going to be no one else in the race. And in any event, I will be on the ballot this year. Last time around, we made the decision to try to be really responsible and conservative with our neighbors' tax dollars and not spend the money to send around a ballot when I would be the only name on it. This year, because there is a mayoral election, there will be a ballot sent to every district. So I will be on the ballot. So knock on wood, I'll get a couple of votes that way.
Yeah. Okay. So you're sort of the Kim Il-jung of Santa Barbara in a way, in terms of elections. But why Kim Jong-il, I meant to say. Okay.
I was going to say, I think, yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking of the sister, I think. Anyway, so why should people vote for you in District 6? What have you done in the 2019, almost 2 years that you've been at City Hall now? What accomplishments do you point to? And what would be, sort of the shorthand version of the criteria for your candidacy?
Well, I'm really proud of what we've been able to accomplish in the last almost 2 years. I've been a very effective advocate for my neighbors, and it has meant more than just rhetoric. It's actually translating our shared values into legislative victories on the dais. And I do want to take a second and of course acknowledge that no one on the city council can do anything alone. We, the 7 of us, are a team and we accomplish what we accomplish together. But I feel very proud of the work that I've done to move policy forward, particularly in the area of housing, where I believe I was instrumental in fast tracking the downtown housing amendments. Really pushing hard to increase the inclusionary percentage and get that conversation going again, to make sure that we get tenant protections for our neighbors. Our downtown area has the highest, I believe the highest number of renters of any district in the city. And we really are struggling under the weight of exorbitant rents, struggling particularly with this pandemic to see where our futures will go, how our futures will, how we'll be able to make it all work. So that's something I'm particularly proud of, as well as pushing policies that make our city more equitable for all of our residents. And one of the areas that I think really demonstrates my commitment to that is related to how our police force acts in the city of Santa Barbara. And with the beginning, really the first stages of creating a civilian oversight board. I'm very proud of the work that I've done there to set up a system that respects our police force, that respects the good work they do in our community, while also prioritizing building trust and communication between our law enforcement and the residents that they serve. So those are just a few examples, but really, I think at the end of the day, I hope that my neighbors see the work that I do as really about getting tangible results. It's about brainstorming with them. I mean, I have conversations with my neighbors daily about the problems we face, about the kind of city we want to build together. And I think that what I bring to the table is taking those conversations and translating them into action on the dais. And it's something I'm extremely proud of and something that I will continue if I'm lucky enough to be elected.
Fair enough. I want to ask you about all 3 of those issues, but
I figured.
let me just close on the politics. Have you raised any money yet? I didn't.
Yes.
You know, I went to the website, the county website, and I didn't find a committee for you. Do you have a committee and they just haven't posted it yet?
Well, I just started last week, so it's pretty new. I mean, look,
How much have you raised?
gotta just, I don't know the exact number, but it's going well. It's going well.
Is it more than $10,000?
In a week? No,
So
let's not get
is
too
it more
crazy.
than $5,000?
I think it's right around there.
Okay,
It's right
fair
around
enough.
there.
All right. Now, there's also a mayor's race. Go ahead, finish your thought. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, look, the election is a year out. And I have to tell you, well, of course, I so respect the centrality of the campaign to our democratic system. And I'm really looking forward to being in dialogue with my neighbors and to having those important conversations about what they want to see from their representative for the next 5 years. My focus right now, Jerry, is on digging us out of this hole, this huge hole that we find ourselves in, not of our own making. I mean, I believe, and I don't think it's hyperbole to say that the decisions we make in the next year are truly monumental for our city, and they will guide the future of our city for generations to come. I mean, they're really, really consequential decisions. And folks are struggling. They're out of work. They don't know if they're going to make rent. And so, I look forward to the work of the campaign, but I'm singularly focused on serving.
Hopefully, but then you'll actually be able to go door to door and you won't have to do everything on Zoom, and we'll all be safe and live happily ever after. But just to close on politics, so there's also a mayor's race, as you know, this year, and the mayor is running for a re-election. Are you going to endorse her?
Yeah, I am supporting all my colleagues. I haven't spoken to
So you're also
them
supporting
yet.
Eric Friedman and Kristen Sneddon, who are.
Yeah, I haven't talked to them, so I guess that begs the question if they want my support, but but they have it. And I mean, look, my colleagues
You would support Kristen over Barrett Reed in District 4.
I support Kristen, yes.
Okay.
And look, my colleagues and I don't always agree, you know that, and we don't always disagree well, and you know that too. But I believe strongly that we are all committed to finding common cause to serve our neighbors through this next year. That's the most consequential that we've ever had. And look, we are not going to have the swearing in for a year. So we have a year where we have to work together, arm in arm, leaning in as this council is currently constituted. And I'm going to do just that. If a year from now, we, swearing in, it's still the same, I'm going to keep working that way. If the council's constituted differently a year from now, I'm going to work the same way with the new folks. It's not personal. What's personal is the problems that are facing our neighbors.
Well, except that there is, a lot of it is personalities. Let's be blunt. When you say we don't always work together well, that's really a reflection of the mayor, isn't it? And her inability to harmonize and reach consensus and bring people together.
I don't know. That's a pundit's job to make that decision. I would say we're human. Look, we show our humanity at times, probably, more than folks would like us to, but we all feel really strongly about these issues. And I think, that is to our credit. And I truly believe that we all want to work for folks. And that's what matters the most.
All right, let's talk about the pandemic. And first of all, on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being very poor and 10 being the best that could possibly be Fiorello LaGuardia territory, how would you rate the mayor's leadership over the pandemic?
Well, I think that's a complicated question because we as a
that's
city.
Why I asked you to put a number on it. That simplifies it.
I can't. I don't think that question.
Higher than 5 or less than 5?
The mayor doesn't have a specific role to play in setting policy related to the pandemic. So
the mayor has a bully pulpit that the other council members don't really have. Anyway, let's leave that. Okay, let me ask you this. Let me ask you this about the pandemic. There's been this tension, it seems to me, between education and enforcement in terms of public health steps that people ought to take, just common sense things like wearing a mask. And the city's really erred, it seems to me, on the side of education. Why hasn't there been a stricter enforcement of masks? Look at our numbers with the pandemic right now. 7 more deaths yesterday. It's awful. Shouldn't the city be being more aggressive?
Yes. I will say this, it's been, I think, 310, maybe 311 days since the Santa Barbara City Council voted for the first time to close indoor dining. I think that it's understandable that my colleague's position might evolve during that time. I don't think any of us could have possibly predicted the scale or the scope of this crisis, even when we took that vote 311 days ago. With that said, our charge is to make the best decisions with the information we have at the moment. In this moment that we are in right now, I believe that it's time that we start informing folks of the ordinance on the books, which is and does allow for enforcement of mask wearing. I also just want to say— Will
you bring that before the council? Will you breathe?
I think the ordinance is already on the books. So it's not a matter of bringing it to council, but sharing my perspective.
How are you going to enforce it? What steps will you take to enforce it more strictly?
Oh, well, I think folks need to know that enforcement is possible. Right now, as far as I'm aware and what I'm hearing from people, they don't even understand that they could be fined for it. And so I think that's an important piece to this equation, is making sure that individuals are aware that enforcement is possible, and then communicating with our police force that we want to see that happen, as well as making sure that we're on the same page with the county leadership on this. We do have to take a regional perspective to dealing with COVID. We are not in a bubble as much as we would like to be here in Santa Barbara. So, to the extent that we move forward with enforcement, which I believe that we should lean into doing, we need to see the sheriff's office do the same thing. We need to see the other jurisdictions do that same work, because South County in particular, we are a regional area and we need to have a regional response, because we got to take care of this once and for all.
And we have the worst transmission rate, the so-called R-ought number in the state of California. It's 1.23 or 1.27. The state's just one, which really calls out for, it seems to me, more aggressive. So I'm just asking you, what specific actions will you take as a council member to make sure that the enforcement gets more aggressive?
I'm already having the conversations with the administration, with the city administration behind the scenes, to ensure that we can really act on that ordinance that we put on the books, to understand what the holdup is. And look, I know you don't want to hear this, Jerry, but here's a reality. I'm lobbying with our county government and with the folks that I know there to make sure that we're all on the same page on this. And I know that sounds like political speak, but it's not. We really need to take a regional approach if we're going to have success. If the Santa Barbara Police Department is alone in going to remind folks to wear a mask or to hand them a ticket if they don't do it, we are not going to see an improvement in the transmission rate. We all need to be on the same page. So my role here is really to try to remind folks in the county government, in our various sister cities, that we all have to work together in concert to ensure that the county health guidelines are followed everywhere. That is how we are going to beat this. We are not an island unto ourselves in Santa Barbara. And that's got to be step one. That is the really foundational piece to getting us past this health crisis, is making sure that we are all taking the same steps.
All right, fair enough. Let's talk about the Citizen Formation Commission, because I think if you do have a signature issue that you can point to, it's really your leadership on that. The Civilian Review Board, or whatever it's going to be called. So there, I was really surprised. A lot of people applied. What, 70 people or something to be on?
Almost 80.
Yeah, and how many of you now interviewed? Has the council interviewed?
I think we've interviewed 30 or 32 thus far. And a couple of people, said, seeing how great those folks are, I'm not going to interview. So I think we have another about 40 to go.
And what are you looking for? What do you want this commission to do specifically?
So thank you for asking that question, because I know there's a lot of confusion, or some confusion rather, about what this is. And I'm going to back up a bit here, and I hope you'll bear with me, because I think it's worth really articulating how this is going to move
I'll
forward.
start shouting when it's not okay.
And I'll just turn your sound down. So I'll keep
And
going.
believe me, I'm used to that.
So there are many different forms, as you know, Jerry, of civilian oversight. There are a lot of different systems and structures that communities can put in place. In my view, and in the view of the research, and there is quite a body of research related to civilian oversight of police now, it's not a new idea. The best way to ensure that you get the right form for your city is to put together a commission, a diverse commission that's reflective of your community, to dig in and do the work, to do the research, to understand what currently exists in the police department, to talk to community members, to understand what their needs are, where is the disconnect between citizens and law enforcement, if there's a disconnect, and to work together to do the academic research as well. It's, there's community work, there's academic work, there's bureaucratic work, institutional work rather. So to really prioritize and focus in a kind of laser way on assessing what's needed in the city of Santa Barbara. That's what this commission will do.
Let me just interrupt for because I just want to
please
clarify one thing. So is the Citizen Formation Commission going to be the board that does whatever oversight there is, or is it going to bring together recommendations and policy to create that board? Is it
The latter. So it's the latter. This, and of course, there's nothing precluding someone who gets appointed to this formation commission to then ultimately sit on whatever results. But I also just want to say, I'm not presupposing any result. Now, I have a preferred mode of oversight from the work that I've done in this area, but these are the folks that are going to become experts on what's needed in the city, and they're going to recommend to us what form the board, and I use that just as a stand-in for whatever, they might recommend something other than a board. And then we will move forward to institute those recommendations. And if it's to form a new board,
what's the time frame? What's the time frame under that they'll be working? Are they going to have a deadline?
Flexible. My guess is they'll be doing it. They'll be at it for a year, is my guess. And I want to acknowledge that's a long time. But to the credit of our community members,
Henry just came in.
Oh, hi, Hank. He couldn't be away from you for even 20 minutes, huh?
No, he probably. But anyway, okay. So about a year now.
About a year.
This process began with the George Floyd Black Lives Matter protest, Healing Justice, as it's known in Santa Barbara. And one of the things that happened concurrently was that the board, as I recall, adopted a resolution saying that racism, systemic racism, is a public health pandemic or epidemic. Do you believe that there is systemic racism in the Santa Barbara Police Department?
I think there's systemic racism in every system and institution that we have in this country. So certainly. Do I think that our Santa Barbara Police Department has the kind of problems that we see in some of the larger cities? Absolutely not. Our police force are full of dedicated, compassionate, community-minded folks. And to their credit, to their absolute credit, every single one of them that I've spoken to has been frankly excited about the possibility of civilian oversight. They want to improve relationships, to improve trust. And, again, to their credit, our law enforcement believes if this is what our neighbors want, and if this is going to give them an opportunity to really liaise with the police force and truly engage with them in a meaningful way, our police force has been very positive about it. And I have every confidence that what will come out of this civilian oversight board is a recognition and an understanding of what a really wonderful group of folks we have here in Santa Barbara.
Well, can you point to anything specific, ways in which systemic racism has manifested itself in the police department?
Well, I think folks, the policing itself, I think, is a function of systemic racism. Folks have been doing a lot of teaching for me about the roots and history of policing and how it has evolved out of slavery. And that in and of itself is a function, obviously, of systemic racism. But we can all do better. I think we kind of get caught up in this, like, well, where's the problem? Look, we can all do more to make every one of our neighbors feel welcome. We can all do more to make sure that our politics and policies here in the city of Santa Barbara are more equitable, that let more people have a seat at the table. And to me, that's what it's about. It's not about a gotcha. It's about, well, why would we not want to do better? Why would we not want to do more for our neighbors?
But you know very well that there is a national debate about the issue of systemic racism, and it's derives from critical race theory. Are we living in a colorblind society with Enlightenment values where each individual is responsible for themselves, or are we living in a sort of a deconstructionist reality where these power relationships exist? So you're coming down on the critical race theory side of this. Am I correct?
Well, if this was a classroom, I would probably say that, but it's not. This is the city of Santa Barbara, and I'm not talking about critical race theory, when I talk about improving trust between law enforcement and our neighbors, I'm talking about the experience of their lives and what they want to see for their city. And whether it's a function of critical race theory, I mean, that was certainly part of my education as I was sort of coming of age, but it's about more than that. It's about building an equitable city, and that's my priority.
All right. What does the phrase defund the police mean to you?
Well, it means different things to different people, and it depends on the context.
Right. What does it mean to you? What I'm asking.
Well, I've never said that phrase in my
So
comments.
you don't think
council.
you disagree with defunding the police as a?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
What I do, so the part of defund the police that I think gets lost, because it's a phrase that I think has a lot of baggage. What gets lost is the opportunity we have to increase spending on mental health services, on substance abuse disorder
Taking the
services.
money
And
away from the police department budget.
not necessarily. I mean, sorry?
To do that, to increase the funding for more humane.
Exactly. Well, yeah, and we ask our police officers to do so much. I mean, too much, frankly. And it's not a criticism of them. It's saying, wow, look at what they've been tasked with doing, and a recognition that over the years, their role has grown and grown and grown in response to a lot of these social problems that government has failed to deal with in other more meaningful ways. So, that's a priority for me moving forward in the next year, certainly, is to see what opportunities we have to, we don't have a mental health department. We don't have behavioral wellness at the city. That's a function of the county. But there's got to be ways, whether it's partnering or dedicating funding. And I'm searching for those ways because it's a priority for me and I'm seeing a lot more need for it.
But you and all of your colleagues voted against, I believe it was $149,000 expenditure for a consultant to study the funding of the police department, the budget, and see where else it was. So if that's what you want to do, why did you vote against that consultant?
Well, I don't think one depends on the other at all. I think that's a fallacy. I mean, first, look, $150,000 on a study right now, we don't have the money. We don't have it. And we have also identified as a council and as a community that it's a priority for us to get this civilian review oversight formation commission up and running. That's going to cost money. And, as we do that, we will learn about the police department. We will learn about its function. So let's get through that. And then we can assess if we need to bring in an outside consultant. I already know what we need to do, Jerry. I already know that we need to increase funding in whatever opportunity or capacity we have to mental health services, to substance abuse disorder services, to helping our homeless neighbors get into housing. I already know that's what we need to do. I don't need a consultant who costs $150,000 to tell me that's what we need to do.
All right, fair enough. Let's talk about downtown and State Street. The last time you were on the show, April 22nd, 2020, as you recall, you stated,
Fateful day.
This is a moment for us to figure out what we want our city to be. And since then, a lot of things have happened, and most notably the closing of State Street, and you junking it up with these electric bike charging stations and a bunch of other stuff. But
so that's the guy who hasn't left his house, huh?
But I've seen pictures. But one of the things you also said when you talked to Hal Conklin's group is the only way we're going to get there is we start to peel back the regulatory hurdles that hinder private investment in State Street and really across our city. What are you doing to get rid of those regulatory hurdles? Specifically, there's been a lot of complaints about the citizens, the number of citizen advisory committees that make people jump through hoops. What's going on with that?
Oh, that's a great question. And I have to say, I still strongly believe that our role moving through the next year is going to really be in large part about peeling back those layers where we can. And obviously, I'm in government. I love regulation. So I don't mean to imply that we should get rid of them all, but we got to look to simplify where we can. As to the boards and commissions, that is something that is a regular conversation here about what we can or should get rid of. And, I got to say they're in the charter. So it's not quite so simple to just, give one of them the axe. It's really not.
It would require charter reform.
Yeah, exactly. And look, boards and commissions are so Santa Barbara. They're so Santa Barbara. So we've got to find a balance between respecting our system, which has, allowed us to sort of develop an incredible city, we got to respect that while also paring back where appropriate and where we can. One of the things that I'm really excited about pursuing this year is to try to institute some limitations, to set the contours of, for example, what a project might have to go through when it tries to get approvals. You hear sort of the horror stories, I think that's fair to say, of a project that has to go back 9, 10, 11 times to these different boards. And that, time is money. That's hugely frustrating. And I think that's not reasonable. I don't think it's reasonable to get rid of the boards altogether. There's got to be a middle ground.
Isn't the basic problem the culture of the community development department, which treats citizens and taxpayers who are paying their salaries as adversaries rather than as clients?
Yeah.
So how do you going to change that? How do you think the council
customer service has to be first? There is a council subcommittee. I'm not on that subcommittee that is tasked with ensuring and really following up on the recommendations that were put forth in the recent consultant report. I don't remember the name of the consultant, but you can find it. One of those. So they're following up on it, and they're tracking it down, and it seems to be going better. And anecdotally, I've gotten more positive feedback about community development in the last 3 months than I have in the last 2 years. But we can't stop, and it's going to be about changing the culture, and changing the culture to a customer first one.
But you are the chair of the State Street Subcommittee.
Correct.
And you've had a number of meetings on that, and there was, I believe, a questionnaire for citizens in December. Where does that stand, and what changes need to be made?
So the State Street Subcommittee has a limited purview, and it is sort of an initial bite at the apple, and there will be many, many bites to come, I have to acknowledge. And this is our purpose is really to put together a vision statement for our downtown that will sort of provide the basis for whatever projects or policies move forward for our State Street. So we did a survey, or are doing a survey rather, and it's open for a couple more days. So anyone watching, please go to santabarbaraca.gov/State Street, and you can got the plug-in, you can fill it out.
Plenty of free parking. Yes.
Thanks. Oh, too much. And we did what's called a road show, where we went to all of the boards and commissions and asked them for their feedback, and had them sort of do the exercise of what they envision for the downtown. And we've had a really robust amount of public comment at these meetings, and we're just trying to really put our finger on the pulse of where the community is on the issue of State Street and our downtown core.
What's the next
What do they
step?
want to see?
What's the next?
Yeah, in about a month, I think maybe 6 weeks, it'll be coming back to council. Our committee will provide an overview to the full council about sort of what we identified, and then we're going to just hash it out. Do we want to keep State Street closed to vehicular traffic? If so, what's going to be the process of identifying the capital projects that are going to be long-term, really transformative? I mean, it would be transformative projects and would be a huge but exciting undertaking. Or the alternative, do we want cars to return? And really, let's answer that question, and then we'll sketch out the process that's to follow.
All right, let's talk about another issue about rents and the complex issues that have financial issues that really have accompanied the pandemic on that. I mean, you basically are in the process of imposing de facto rent control, are you not, in the city with the eviction?
How so?
With the moratoriums on rent and the requirements of relocation. I just want to read you a quote from Mr. Cannell. He says, how much ordinances and protections and laws do you want to create? You've already slammed the landlords and property owners in this town immensely for the past 10 months, and now you're going to hit them again. At the end of the day, it's going to come back, and people aren't going to be willing to invest in this town to create opportunities for housing. How do you respond to that?
Well, first of all, with the relocation assistance, it only occurs in the event of an eviction that is for no fault of the tenant. So the idea that it's owed anytime a tenant moves, it's not true. So if a landlord is evicting for a reason that is not related to the tenant's behavior, i.e. he wants to let it to someone else for double the price, that is when the the relocation monies would be owed. So it's a really limited set of circumstances, really limited. And I think that's important that we keep in mind. Look, I have a huge amount of empathy for our landlords. I understand that it's hugely stressful to have evolving regulation. I understand it's a lot of pressure to be under. By the same token, our tenants are facing an eviction cliff, frankly. Our tenants are not, they don't know how they're going to get through. And we see, so many folks say that homelessness is increasing and it's such a challenge. Well, a lot of our neighbors are right on the verge of homelessness, and we've got to do what we can to allow folks to stay in their homes. And look, simultaneously, as I'm working on the regulatory side to protect our tenants, I'm also pushing to build housing in this town. So I want to make it clear that I know that that doing rent-related regulations is not a panacea. I understand that. It's a Band-Aid. But we can't do nothing while we wait and struggle and sometimes fail to build housing. We got to push. It's two sides of the same coin, and we have to be able to do both. And I am.
Let me read you something that you said recently. I don't think this relocation amount is supposed to be easy to pay. I don't think it's supposed to be cheap. I do think it's supposed to have a deterrent effect. That makes one wonder, do you believe in capitalism or
Yes.
Huh?
Yes.
I mean,
I absolutely.
That doesn't sound like a very balanced view is all I'm saying.
First of all, I absolutely believe in capitalism, and that can be the headline quote from this interview. I believe in the free market, but we have to. I knew this was going to happen today. I just knew this morning that this was how this was going to go.
No, it's going fine for me.
Oh, I'm sure. I can just see in your eyes, your mood is improving with every gotcha quote you pull out. No, look, here's the deal with that. We do have a responsibility in this city to ensure that our tenants have the ability to live here. And I am not someone that subscribes to the view that, oh, sorry, if you can't pay $4,000 a month, you don't deserve to live here. That's not equitable, it's not just, and it's not reflective of where my neighbors are and what the needs of my neighbors are either. As to the relocation assistance, that goes to my very first point. This relocation assistance is supposed to be only in the rarest of circumstances. We don't want our landlords evicting tenants for financial reasons. We don't want our landlords evicting tenants for reasons that are unrelated to the tenant's behavior. That's not a system that works well for folks. Maybe it works well for the few, but it doesn't work well for the many. And I don't think that it's anti-capitalist to say that we want to try where we can to ensure that we have the kind of behavior that's going to support the most people. And I think, look, if it's financially feasible for a landlord to evict a tenant, they're going to do it anyway. This just ensures that the folks that they evict will be able to land on their feet. And I don't think that's asking too much.
All right, let's talk about housing a little bit. I believe we now have what, a 15% requirement in building housing, that it has to be in the missing middle, moderate. Is that correct?
So there's a little nuance here. Technically, it's still only 10%. As I stated earlier, and as you know, have pushed very hard to increase that percentage. We got a vote, a unanimous vote, I might add, so really appreciate the work of my colleagues on this, to open it up again, to push it to 15%. My understanding is that has to go to Planning Commission, and it hasn't yet. So it should shortly. I'm got my eye out on it, but that is where I believe we will end up.
But it's only 10% for downtown? I'm a little confused on that point. Is that, go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted 15% across the board. This was a compromise. And again, look, sometimes legislating is about getting done what you can get done and not letting the perfect be the enemy of the good. In this case, a lot of, I think my colleagues were concerned, rightfully so, with the cost of land downtown, and thought that an added 5% inclusionary would just kind of blow folks out of the water and make it impossible to develop. I don't agree. And I have to say, I know my approach to policy making on housing has been a bit controversial, in that I see it as a transaction, as a negotiation. I'm a transactional lawyer, so I guess I just can't help myself. But I'm sitting at the table as a representative of my neighbors saying, I have a couple of incentives that I can give to you, developer. I can talk about density. I can talk about building height. I can talk about, types of zoning. And I will give you whatever it is that you need to make it work. But here is my line in the sand. Here's what I need to ensure that my neighbors get the benefit of this bargain. And as I've said to developers, as I've said publicly, what I need to see is 15% affordable. After that, I am open to negotiating on all the points that the city has available to it to use as incentives. So look, come to me, tell me what you need. Just say, if you want 15, I need 54 feet, or whatever the case may be. Just tell me,
So
and I will work.
You would allow a developer to build 54 feet?
I'm open to building height, yes.
Oh yeah, how about 60?
Some places 60 works. Some places 60
How about
works.
72?
Look, I don't know. I'm not an architect, so what does 72 look like versus 50? My point is,
so I just want to be clear. You just said that you believe that it's okay to have a 60-foot height limit downtown. Is that correct?
In certain places. Now, across the board downtown, do I think it's acceptable? It's context specific, so you have to take that for what it is. There are certain buildings that go to 60 feet, and you either don't notice them or they fit in perfectly. So it's just not true to say that 60 feet will stick out like an eyesore. We already have certain buildings that are very tall. So, again, it depends on the block. It depends on how it's done. A lot of housing authority projects have been able to step up height, and it's worked beautifully. So there's opportunity there. And the thing that I'm not willing to do is to say full stop, no, I'm not having the discussion, because we are in a housing crisis. We have been. And, look, it's not as simple as just a straight supply and demand calculus, but we do know if you don't build any housing, the crisis doesn't get better. So that's a fundamental truth, and I don't know how you get around it. So I think it's important we're flexible.
Well, let me ask you this: when you talk about the housing crisis, and when you approach it as a policy matter, as a policymaker, what population do you envision Santa Barbara having? And in other words, how much housing needs to be built to accommodate how many people? We're at 90,000 now. Are we built out? Do we need 120,000, 150,000? What do you think?
Well, I'm not a demographer, so I don't know. I know what our RENA numbers tell us.
Yeah. Are
And
those realistic? 8,000 units, 4,000 for the city?
they're aspirational. They're aspirational. I think the RENA numbers are
But
reflective
aspirational,
of
is aspirational mean realistic?
Well, look, I mean, come on.
No, it doesn't, does it?
I walked into this one. No, it's not going to happen this year, of course. But look, it does tell us something about the need. It tells us something really
Well,
important.
it tells us
the
something
need.
about what Sacramento perceives as the need and what Sacramento thinks Santa Barbara ought to be. But
Okay, that's fair, but my neighbors are struggling too. So at least downtown, folks hear that number and I talk to them about that. And first of all, most people don't care. But, when I do have this conversation, they're like, heck yeah, it's impossible. We can't find housing. And it is families that are struggling. It's middle-class folks that are struggling to find housing. And I think it is reflective of what I'm seeing from my neighbors. I'm a renter. It's reflective of my own experience trying to find housing in the city. We don't have any.
All right, fair enough. We're running out of time, but I got to ask you this. I heard a rumor you're trying to get on the Coastal Commission. Is that true?
You pulled no punches today. 0 punches were
I
pulled.
told you I was
None.
in a foul mood.
Oh my gosh, I should have, you know what? I should have said I couldn't get my computer to work. I knew it.
Yeah. Well, it's okay. It's okay that you're doing. I just what is your interest in being on the Coastal Commission?
Well, I do a huge amount of land work in my professional land use work in my professional life. I'm a real estate finance lawyer, so deeply, deeply interested in sort of that intersection, how the Coastal Act in particular intersects with private property rights. And it's something that I deal with a lot in my professional life and is central to a lot of the work we do here in Santa Barbara. So intellectually, super fascinated by it and passionate about what the major issues are going to be in front of the Coastal Commission in the next year, 2 years, which is how do we balance our need for affordable housing, both capital A and little a, with our desire and our community commitment to protecting the coast. And that's central. It's a value of mine. And answering that question, I think, is really going to determine our state's future. It really is. And so I want to be at that table. I want to be part of that conversation.
And
so we'll see.
Who's the decision maker on that?
Gavin, the governor. I don't know him. We just all call him Gavin anymore.
No, I call him Prince Gavin, but anyway. All right.
Yeah, it's a long shot, but we'll see. We'll see. I'm learning a lot.
Meagan Harmon, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us and putting up with me. I greatly appreciate it, and
I will come to the firing line anytime for you, Jerry.
Look
I
forward
appreciate
to
it.
talking to you when we get a little closer to the election, and maybe you'll even have an opponent. Who knows?
Thank you very much for having me. It's good to see you.
Thank you.